Well, howdy, y'all. Matt here with Grafted Branch Homestead. Welcome to a beautiful morning here, February 9th in New Mexico. It is sunny, and we are getting gardens ready today. So let me set this up here. Hopefully everyone's doing all right. Hey, CDB. Hey, Mr. Landfill 5x5. Awesome. You rock. Well, there we go. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to see too much of the comments for now. We have a couple things I'm going to talk about a little bit, I guess, and show outside here, and then we'll head inside and I'll be able to see comments a little bit more. Hey, Steve. So let me do this real quick, and I'll do my little opening, and I'll let the solo in. Can you use the plug? All right. Good morning, everyone. Matt here with Grafted Branch Homestead. Welcome for everyone that's been with us for a while, and if anyone watching in replay or is new, here we are in the southwest desert of New Mexico, and we sit up on the high mesa, and so we are doing homesteading urban style from our backyard. We have pretty much a large backyard, and one of those things is gardening. You know, gardening can be an enormous challenge no matter where you're at. I think it's funny when people assume they'll just throw seeds in the ground and start. And if you can do that, hey, awesome. But there's usually a lot more to it, especially out here in the desert. We have some extra things. So today is February 9th. It's the very beginning of February. We are starting to plant some stuff for where we're at. Now, we are zone 7A to 7B. We have a lot of microclimates and then some other things as well in there. We'll talk about that when we get inside. But today I wanted to show a little bit of what we do. I'm not going to show every plant we do or when and where to plant it and all that. That's going to be really particular to you and your area and what you need. So my goal today is to show you what we're doing and then hopefully give you some tips and things like that to figure out what you need to do, when and where, or maybe to encourage you to get started with your planting or think about a garden this year. Or if you're already doing so, just maybe give us a thumbs up and enjoy the video. So first, we are going to get to some outdoor planting. Now, yes, it is February 9th, even though it is sunny and gorgeous out here, it is still very early for a lot of outdoor planting. Most areas can't do it. Right now, we can start a little bit where we're at now. And actually, technically, we started in like October, November with some of our outdoor cold weather crops. So here in New Mexico, we get very hot very quick. We also have a last frost date that's kind of late. It can be in the end of April sometimes. It's in the middle to end of April. And you may be saying, hey, what's that last frost date? We'll talk about that more in a few minutes when we get inside and why it's very important. However, our last frost date here is about the end of April. So we want to plant cold weather crops now that can withstand frost, withstand ground temperatures. Here in New Mexico, right around now, even though we have a late last frost date, the ground itself doesn't really freeze solid. It'll still stay pretty warm, especially if I'm doing some covering over some of the crops and stuff. But it heats up here to really, really hot really quickly. So even though we can have a really late last frost date, those temperatures can be getting up into the 80s and 90s pretty quickly after that. And so certain plants like peas or celery or different things like that can either, or even some of the brassicas can either start to bolt quickly or die off with that heat, with that change. So we've never had a large amount of success with our winter crops necessarily. Things like some of the softer lettuces, peas, different things like that have been really hard for us to plant here. They just either freeze or die off too quickly. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do a little bit of planting. Hey, Paul. Hey, Glacier Shark, morning. Good to see everyone. There's still 4 inches of snow on the ground. Yeah, a lot of places still have a lot of snow, but even if you're not able to be planting right away, right now, it's a good time to be talking about infrastructure too. So that's something I point out quite a bit. I think it's definitely something that helps. It makes gardening and homesteading feasible if you're doing a lot of things, I believe. And so some of that infrastructure you can be doing now, even if there's snow on the ground, is starting to prep garden beds. You could be putting up lines, shade cloth. This year, we have much more focus on infrastructure. Some of that does have to do with winter crops, and I know I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry, but with our last frost, we always get a real big hail or a kind of freak little snowstorm right there in mid to end of April. And so this year I'm going to be using, and it usually wipes out a lot of our lettuces and things. This year I'll be using some shade cloths to help prevent that. We have infrastructure as far as in, I'll show some of it, but as like these poles that go up and different beams and things this year in place so that I can do that. We're going to combat pests like birds with the bird fabric or bird cloth net that's up over it. And then some other things too. So we also have like, our hoops for our row covers. But before I just talk, let me get into what I want to do a little bit out here. So there's a few things. We've never been successful with celery. We are going to try that this year, and I think Spicy Mom might talk about that a little bit later. We're going to try to accomplish that by the breed or the variety of the celery we're planting, as well as the microclimate we're planting it in. Same thing as with some of the lettuces. Now, lettuces we can't do outside quite yet. There's some we could start inside and transplant out. There's some that will do really well in the heat that we can run through summer, like romaine. And so knowing which plant to plant and when, that just takes a little bit of research, something you'd need to do and figure out. Some of the things I can do outside here, though, right now, I'm a little closer. It's because I kicked him out. Oh, here's Solo. One of the things I can do out here that we haven't had great success with, but I'm going to try, is peas. Now, peas is something that can be planted early. It's frost hardy as long as the ground's not freezing really solid. If I get one of those freak hails or snows, I need to cover it, but it can deal with the cold. It can't deal with the heat. So once the temperatures are jumping up over like 75, the peas are all going to die off. Also, to get enough of the peas, I really need a large bed. We're going to do it anyways. Peas need a couple things. They do need that cold weather. They need some sort of trellis. They don't need a real hardy trellis that you would need for like cherry tomatoes or something. I like to use this one. So this is just strings between the two posts here. And they're real light. They'll climb up this. Couple of varieties I'm going to be doing. Two varieties. I'm going to be doing Early Perfection and Sugar Daddy. We're going to do a couple of these in here. Peas you can plant pretty close together. They can be almost touching, pretty dense. And they do like that row. So I'm going to plant them in a row right along the line here. Peas really don't like being messed with. I've tried growing them inside and transplanting them out. That doesn't work very well. Even if I keep them in little pots and move that whole pot out, I haven't had good success with that. I've had much better. Who you got there? Poppy. I've had much better success, although we haven't had good success, but with the peas, planting them direct sow. So long-winded thing, I'm going to go ahead and plant some of these, and then I'll show you a few winter crops that we actually still have growing that we planted earlier. Then we're going to head inside, do some indoor crops and some more chat out there. So I have my seeds soaking here, my peas. This just helps them to sprout. Overnight is best. They didn't get quite that long, and I'm going to plant them along the line here, about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch deep. And it's easiest just to dig a trench. I don't know how well you can tell, but I've already put in drip lines. There won't be running yet because it's still too cold. I'll be hand watering. They do need that moisture. So another thing we battle here is the arid climate. So that can really make things that need that moisture difficult. So I'm going to fill up half this row here with some peas. And then when these come to harvest, about April, about around that last frost date or a little bit after that, we'll probably be harvesting them late April. Then this bed will be used for something else. So I'll be able to switch it out. And what are we going to plant here, do you think?
Plan.
Oh, we're not sure. We'd have to look at the plan.
That might be a good place for cucumbers.
Cucumbers would be good. I was thinking about using cucumbers up along this back fence too.
There was one here last year that did pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The cherries.
Yeah. So we got the early perfection. Now I'm going to put some sugar daddy, and then I'm also going to plant 2 other plants here. I'll show those in just a moment and get everything dirty.
I did get 2 new varieties of cucumbers this year.
2 new varieties.
Yeah, dragon's egg and.
So I don't know if they can hear some on my mic here, but she said we're doing 2 new varieties of cucumbers this year. We're going to try dragon's egg, and what was the other one?
I can't remember the name, but
I can't remember the name. I have not heard of that one.
But it's like a brown. Neither one of them really look like cucumbers.
So they don't really look like cucumbers. Okay.
They look like
cucumbers that don't look like cucumbers, but we can't remember the name. Are you sure they're cucumbers?
Yes, that's why they're exciting.
Okay, that's why they're exciting. All right, cool. So a couple other plants that I can do right now that are a little more frost hardy are some things like spinach. Now, some of these plants, I'm a big believer in redundancies. And I was actually listening to Aaron over in Gidros' live stream last night, and I liked how he was talking about, he's going to gamble on planting early, and if those die, he'll have some in the greenhouse. And I'm all about the redundancies, planting multiple places as well as having extra plants on hand. So we're going to try several things, but here I have the Merlot Nero spinach, and this one is. You want to sow spinach pretty early. Spinach here can bolt pretty quick as soon as it heats up. So these will stay in the ground dormant a little bit. They do take, about 2 weeks sometimes if you're planting them now, especially before they germinate. So we're going to talk about timing when we get inside, but good timing for these now. So these are going to be planted just in front of my peas here. Little rows. We'll sprinkle some of those down in there. Not very deep, but go. And I'll come through and I'll thin these out when they get about 2 inches tall. Just a little bit. So we're going to do these up front. And one of the things we're going to do to help keep the moisture in the soil, as well as the warmth, the heat, is I'll be putting some straw all across as a mulch on my beds. I actually got to run to the store and pick that up, so I don't have it right now. But I'll come back and put that on here. Spinach is something we love. It is good. There's also something that likes that nitrogen, so the soil compost in this garden here is going to help out with that pretty well. Okay, I got one other plant we're going to plant over here. This is another one that likes those early cooler temperatures and can bolt pretty quick. And that is the red mustard greens. So I got some of our red mustard greens here. I really like these ones. Originally, they came from the Ozarks. They're little seeds. Grow really well. Big plants. They have little pods on them, kind of, when they go to seed. So, put these up front here a little bit. Same way I did the spinach. Little row. And this is not, I'm not talking today about all the things you could plant at this time of year by far. There's a lot you can do. I'm just showing a few things and talking a little bit about what we do, keeping time in mind as well. So let's see. Oh, you guys were able to hear her. Cool. Peas put the nitrogen in the soil. Yes, they pull it from the air. Beans and peas will do that. And the spinach, I believe, needs the nitrogen. Right? Anyways, let me show a couple other things here too. So one of the other ways that we can combat some of those plants that need longer to grow, but tend to either bolt quick or die off in our heat, that we still want to grow. And so we can do that here. We don't have those super hard freezes in the ground in the winter. And that's like this kale that's coming back. Brassicas actually here too. They take a while to get going or to get big enough, get those nice big heads on them. And it ends up getting hot too quick here. We don't really have enough of that in between time with things like the cauliflower, the broccoli, the stuff like that. So those are actually ones we could plant and keep throughout the winter. We could trim down and they'll come back and they do pretty good. We didn't do that this year. We're not going with those this year. But my lavender will come back, strawberries, of course, over winter. But there's a few other plants. Let's go over here. Hey, good morning, Tracy. So a couple other plants too that we want, and because of growing seasons, we choose to do it this way. You can certainly do garlic and onions and things like that all throughout the summer. We actually do that as well. But here we have a lot of garlic going. So this is planted in November and it overwinters and then it pops up in spring. Garlic's one of those things that needs that cooler weather to really get a nice big bulb on it. And then it can go quickly. So we got that over here. Hey, Solo. Getting our greenhouse good and going to get plants in there. Herbs are another thing you can always plant this time of year indoors and in the greenhouse and all. You want to say hi, Casey, before I head inside? We're all out here.
What kind of
hey, Yuri.
Cucumber, since you were making fun of me. So dragon's egg, they're like big and white and they look like dragon's eggs.
Oh.
And then the other one is a sikkim, which is like a brown.
So those are the two new cucumbers we're trying?
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm getting you mullein seeds.
And we're going to do the mullein this year. So this year, me and I'll mention before I go in, just roles in the garden and compromise and all. So Spicy Mom here, she's pretty much the harvester and she plans and harvests. I plant and get bugs and fertilize and do all that stuff. Water, keep it growing. And I don't like these beds up front here because it's really hard for me to get to this bed. So she likes it because from the harvesting point, she can get through in there and she can compact it down. But for me to get bugs and all that, it's difficult. And then I wanted to grow cherry tomatoes up here, but that's hard for her to harvest. But it's easy for me to clip off suckers and do all that and to grow them up on this fence. So this year I'll be a little bit of the harvester of these cherry tomatoes. And she has agreed to be a little bit of the caretaker of the plants back here.
It's because we get like we had some beans growing here last year, and when this is in full bloom, there are tons of peaches leaves and I can't get by it. And if I do,
got 2 pea harvests.
Then there's a bunch of green beans and it's bushing out and I'm too short to reach the top. So
we could get a couple pea harvests. We could also do a pea harvest in the fall too. I mean, and that's the great thing about gardening. That's what I like to share. You really got to get in and just do it. I think you can study as much as you want or try and plan, but without
you can accomplish as much as you can accomplish by trying.
Yes. So do. And if you like I say, you can do everything right in the garden and a rock can fall off a wall or something and crush a plant.
Nothing, the answer will always be nothing.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to head inside, chat for a minute, and then I'm going to plant some indoor seeds. And I know I am where it's Super Bowl Sunday, so I'm trying not to take people's time too much.
I was breaking up all this.
We're getting cleanup done. I heard someone mention in a comment on another stream, but how long to let compost sit for? We let our quail compost. Here's our quail shack. So quail compost, chicken compost comes in here. I like having the two because I can move them back and forth easily to turn it. I let it sit for a year. This year, we didn't have a lot of compost to start our garden. This year, I am bringing some in. That's because we did a fall bed and filled up that bed with the compost. So, all right, I'm going to end this camera, but everyone stay right there and we'll be right back. We'll be inside. Oh, you know what? Yeah. I think they can still hear me. Good time for peas.
What are we coming?
No, you don't. I don't know. I'm going to do this. I'm making a pit stop. So I've decided I'm going to have some more of my alert tea. I've been savoring mine because I want to sell. And I haven't been drinking it as fast, but that's my bag. And I've been regulating it, but I'm going to have some today. If you guys want to get some teas too, we do grow a lot of herbs. So we'll be planting a lot of herbs here in the next couple weeks all coming up that will be inside as well as in the greenhouse. Back to work for you. Oh, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. We'll have a lot of herbs going. We are almost out of all our packaged teas and herbs and all that. We're running real low, actually. And so we will be getting that going and restocking. Farmer Casey will be restocking. And we actually hope to have some of those herbs done hopefully by April, some that are grown inside, and able to do a few teas either April or May. We want to do May and June, really big kind of fundraiser months. So anything sold in the store in May and June are going to come with a special gift I'm working out. And those are going to be to get Farmer Casey to QuailCon. So that will be awesome. So any purchases made in May and June will get you a special gift, custom gift. And we'll go to help get Farmer Casey. So I got some of my alert tea here. This is lemongrass and peppermint. I'm going to turn the camera off and we'll head to the other room. You can come in if you want. I'm just going to shut this a little bit. You don't have to. One thing I think before I get into my other spiel is I wanted to have Spicy Mom real quick to say something. Because celery is something we've been trying to grow. We haven't had success. Celery is hard because you need a lot of time for it to get those stalks and get big. But that's one of the ones, too, that can bolt quickly with our temperatures. So it can be done. And this is with selecting the right plants for your area. And so you found one you think might work for us.
Well, I think when you think celery, you're thinking of I used to think about these big boats that I could put like peanut butter in and snack on, right? Or things like that. And you want in your head when you're gardening, you want these giant plants. But that is not always necessarily what you can grow in your area, in your environment, or what you even might use. Because in all reality, I'm the only person in this house who eats celery.
Now, well, I like it too in soups and things.
But I mean, the kids they've never been a fan of.
Now we can force it. There's certainly things we can do that we can force it. Now, technically, all of our gardening and everything, none of these plants would be here without us and our intervention. They're not going to grow in the mesa. So we're kind of forcing everything. Now, we could always drop a pit in the ground a couple feet down and keep it at 56 degrees and grow celery in there and do lights or sun. We're not going to do that.
So I found this variety that it's thinner. It doesn't have, it's not going to create these giant boats. And I'm going to treat it more like kale or I would a chard or something where I dice it up. It provides some crunch to a dish, whether it be a stir fry, a soup, or anything like that. You have dirt in by your eye.
I have dirt.
I don't want you to get it in your eye. And really that does work better for us because a lot of those greens, that's how the kids do eat them. Some of them they like by themselves, but I just chop them up, throw them in a stir fry or a dish, and that is what I would use it for anyway. So we are going to try this white variety.
One of the things I wanted to experiment this year with preserving too, and you got to think about when you're planting the plants, you're choosing which ones you want. How are you going to use it too? Is it going to be fresh, something eaten right out of the garden, or is it something that's going to be preserved, frozen? I wanted to practice more with powders this year and things like that, and doing like celery salts and celery powders. So the leafy ones would be perfect for that. There's also things you can do without going so extreme and digging a pit or something to help it along, and that is microclimates. So our back area of our garden gets a lot more shade. It's hard to start things back there early in the year because it doesn't get a lot of sun, so it's cooler, but it stays cooler throughout the year. So putting the celery there would be good. That's also one, it takes a long time to get big, even the one we have. So it's probably one we'll start next week.
I've ordered the seeds. As soon as they come in, they're going.
Yeah, thanks,
they're
CDB.
going in.
Everyone hit the like button. I used to say hit like or dislike. I don't care. I like what Aaron says where he says hit like. He doesn't need the negative attitude. I think that's the way to go. You hit the like button.
So so the celery, we'll try it this year. Just like the cucumbers, trying new varieties is good. I only try so many at a time because we want to keep the ones that we know we like consistent doing those. And the next year we have found that certain things that we don't utilize or we don't use in the garden. We're not going to eggplant, for example. I don't know why we can never.
It's good. We like it. You can buy it at the store.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
We're also on a very limited amount of space. If you have a lot of land, it might be something, you know, hey, you
so
can
it's not worth it. I don't want to grow it if the majority of the household isn't going to eat it either. You know, part of the benefit of our garden too is not just having fresh food, it's having food to preserve and, you know, use at a later time, as well as letting Farmer Casey go out there and get a free snack.
Well, we want to grow good food, stuff we know what it's, you know, no chemicals, nothing like that. It's really good food. It's important to have us, like you said, fresh, but also to make sure we can extend it throughout the year as far as we can. So we still have that.
Another new thing we're going to try this year is ground cherries, which I'm super excited about. Just because we did get them one year for some reason. We got a box of them, a case of them. And I think everybody in the house thought that they were like tomatoes. Honestly, now that I've talked to you all about them, no, I don't think
I thought they were tomatillos because they kind of look like it.
I don't think any of you realized that they were gooseberries, ground cherries. So I'm gonna get them, and I think it'll be a wonderful additional snack for Casey, Farmer Casey, in the summer when we're out there in the pool or whatever we're doing, just enjoying the yard. We'll be like, go find some ground cherries for your snack.
So our yard, we talked a little bit last time about priorities and how you prioritize your garden, especially if you're on limited space, is going to be really important. So what are you using it for? Mm-hmm. And there can be several purposes, but it's going to be how you prioritize it. So for us, first of all, it's feeding ourselves. That's both fresh as well as preserving. Mm-hmm. So we want to cut down variety a little bit so that way we can maximize how much we're getting of the plants. Mm-hmm. Also, companion planting, vertical planting, all that stuff's going to be crucial. One of the other second things we want to do is we sell some a little bit, not as much on the veggies, mostly eggs. I'd like to sell a few veggies. We do sell some plants or give some plants away.
Plants like, you know, seed starts was something we did last year. It was, you know, you start a handful in hopes that they survive, and sometimes many survive, and somebody else, whether it be they are starting a garden for the first time or something like that, or theirs didn't survive, it's a really great way to either just sell them to them for a reasonable price or give them to them to get them started on a good path towards this type of lifestyle.
So majority of our garden is for our personal consumption, for eating good, clean food, also for preserving it, for putting away, for prepping for the next year, or for that year, for winter, whatever it may be. And then a little bit of it is to sell. So we do set some of those plants aside. We want to recoup a little bit of money, hopefully make that. One of the projects on the docket this year, if I get to it, is one of the first things I built was an aquaponics system. And so I want to do that again. I want to build a neat aquaponics system. They're pretty easy. It's something I know how to do pretty well. And I'm going to have that fed into a lettuce system. So I would like to grow, and I only mentioned it with you a little bit, but in the back wall of the greenhouse, a PVC pipe system and grow lettuce for market lettuce to sell.
Where the chickens were the silkies
It'll be in the greenhouse on the back wall of it.
Oh, okay.
Where the quail are now.
So what about that little area where the silkies were? You could do something.
We can do too, because it's the priority of that is for market or market lettuce. I want to pick one thing I'd like to sell primarily so as to maximize that. One of the things I've noticed with our shop, which is a good problem, but I'll make a bunch of stuff and then we sell out. And so our supply and demand is on the right side. Our demand's more than our supply. But with selling and market stuff too, I want to make sure I have enough supply. So there's not going to be a lot of variety there. I'm going to start with just lettuce first.
That also makes it easier to get it ready or prepared. Because we don't, it's as much as we love being in the garden and doing and prepping and saving and preserving, it takes time and it takes energy. And we have two kids who are involved in other things, band, orchestra, track, and that is our priority before that. So finding time to harvest, preserve, sometimes.
Then with selling too, another large priority of our garden is going to be our herbs. It's going to be what herbs we plant. And we do a lot of herbs, both prioritized for us personally. We like to do our medicine things. We're pushing that more and more. We're a little behind on the grafted herbal corner. If you're waiting for those videos, February's been funky. I can talk about that at some point, but we'll be back into it either end of February or because it's a really short month. With March, definitely it's metabolic March is my plan. But we do herbs for ourselves for that. We also do them for teas for ourselves. But we sell a lot of herbal teas, and a lot of things we make have herbs. So that's a large priority, and that's going to involve pots and areas we can control it.
Yeah. So this year
we do it all organically. I'm not allowed to say that, so we do it all naturally. But
so this year I'm doing pots specifically because we did get some flowers, some herbal flowers and things like that to grow last year, but not that I had a hard time differentiating them, but like I could just Google or take my camera, but I really just want to have it laid out specifically. So this pot is this, and this
and
pot
that can
is
be
this.
Sometimes I get mixed up. What did I plant where? What was this plant? That just comes with doing. You'll learn. Well, I do want to point out real quick, kind of side note, and this is my prepper side note. I guess I kind of throw into every live stream. So Shadow was mentioning that he wants to get in hydroponics. Hydroponics are great. Hydroponics are just growing the plants off of water, off of nutrient-based water. Aquaponics is when you introduce fish into that system that benefit off the plants, and the plants benefit off the fish, a little bit more of a ecosystem.
So you're saying I'm going to come home to a tub of fish?
And then there's many different types. You can have your ebb and flows, your floating pallets like lettuce you can grow on floating. I'm really get into hydroponics, and I could do a whole thing on it. I love that stuff, but it's something that a lot of people are either nervous to do because there's some work involved, a little research. It's really easy. Don't be nervous. Or some people, if they're taking it from a prepper standpoint, don't necessarily want to dive into it. And they think, oh, it requires electricity and that different power and stuff, in which it does. It can. But there's also things you can do. So I use Bell siphons, which are just a manual. They use pressure systems to dump the water. So for all of the exit from the grow beds is done that way using pressure, no power involved. You can use to pump that water back up through the system. If it's on a large enough system, you can do what's called a ram pump, and that uses pressure as well. There's no electricity involved in that. We do use a pump, or I did when I built it, because it's a smaller system. But that in itself, throw up a solar panel over that, and during the day that's going to pump, it'll fill up and it'll empty the bed. At night, it's not going to pump, and so it won't empty. It'll just reset the system in the morning. There's cool things you can do with it. I think it's very beneficial. Hydroponics in particular has benefits, such as you can grow things a lot faster. You can control their size and stuff like that a lot easier. It has some drawbacks, as in if it's not as forgiving as like soil. So if you have a pH imbalance or a problem there, it can wipe it out. Aquaponics is kind of a hybrid of the two. It's an in-between. You have a little bit more of a buffer because you're feeding your system off of the fish waste. And then that system's kind of feeding the fish, as well as duckweed and stuff like that. And so that's going to create a balance, a pH balance in itself. I'm going to get back to the talk.
No. I was going to tell you another possible drawback is, like, for example, we're here in the desert, so you can't just do an aquaponic system in the backyard by itself.
Well, it'll evaporate off really quick.
You can do it possibly in the greenhouse, is what you're saying,
or under shade. It does need, but if you're doing it with the solar panels, you can use those solar panels for the shade.
Okay, but don't do it inside, because then your house will smell like fish.
Yes. So our first system I built was indoors. It was my indoor aquaponics system.
It made the things growing less appetizing when you smell that fishy smell.
There was an imbalance too. I was learning. It was the first one I built. You shouldn't have too much of a smell if you have a balance. But
this was like 10 years ago.
But I'm not talking aquaponics and hydroponics today. Oh boy, man, I've got to get into that, and I could.
Are you done with me?
I'm done with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, love you.
Love you. I'll have to do a whole talk on that, because I really enjoy that as well. It's also a way you can grow things in less favorable conditions. So all the stuff I talk about today, that when you want to plant it, and I'm about to get into the meat of this discussion, sorry, but when you want to plant it, what plants and all that, all these things can be controlled. You can do it hydroponics inside, you can drop it in the ground for temperature control, same as with like quail or your birds. You can run light for 14 hours a day and have your quail laying eggs year round, or you cannot and give them a break. All things can be differed and controlled. So what I say is just stuff I do and basic stuff. So we're about to get into indoor planting. I have one variety of plants I'm going to plant today, or one type of plants, and then I'll talk a little bit about other ones as well. You guys like my avocado tree? Speaking of forcing things to grow, here's my avocado in the desert. They do grow in hot climates. We're in the high desert, so it would die at night. That's why it's inside. All right. So what I wanted to talk about, that's kind of the meat of of today's discussion, is regardless of what zone you're in, your climates, your microclimates, all that, what different people tell you when to plant things and what to plant and all that, those are all stuff you'll have to do research and figure out on your own. There are two things, or one thing really, but two dates that are extremely important for your planting that you need to know, that's kind of going to be over all the other stuff. And that's going to be your last frost date and your first frost date. And those are extremely, I'm in the dark. Let me get a light on me. I think it's because there's more light back here than on me. So maybe I'll close that. Lighting's kind of an issue. I think I'm getting my sound down a little bit better, but lighting's always been a little bit of an issue. Let's turn this off now. Whew, I'm blind. I looked right into the light. Is that better? Anyway, so that's going to be your last frost date and your first frost date. Now, last frost date's in the fall. We're not going to talk about that right now. But your first frost date. You may say, what is that? And that's, or I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about the first frost date. We're going to talk about the last frost date. And so that's going to be the last day that you're really going to have temperatures below freezing. And so that's important. Some plants, like the peas and things, can deal with that. And your lettuces, if your brassicas have overwintered, they can deal with that. Some cannot. And so that's going to be an important date. Now, when we look at that date for us, it's between April 10th and April 20th. So it's late in the year. We don't get a heavy last freeze where the ground freezes solid, but we will get hail, snow, and some really bad temperatures. Lighting is great. Okay, cool. So for that date, that's going to tell us when we can plant things direct sow outside that need to be planted after or before that date. If we're planting inside like we're about to do, that date's going to give us when we need to plant. And it's not on that date. It's going to be before that date. And so I'm going to use tomatoes, for example. Tomatoes need a while to get going, I think, to the proper size before I'm going to be transplanting them outside. That's about 8 weeks. And so I want to look at, to begin with, 8 weeks before that last frost date. So 8 weeks before April 15th. Usually tax day is what I plan for here. So 8 weeks before that. Now, that's not going to be our final date because you also have a germination period. This is something I forget about a lot. But some plants take a couple weeks. So like basil, for example. Basil has can have almost a 3-week germination period. It can be a lot shorter too if temperatures are better. But so those you need to plant a couple weeks before. So when I'm looking at tomatoes, I'm really looking at about 10 weeks before my last frost date. And so I need to go about 10 weeks before April 15th. That's going to land me about today. So today is a good time for me to be planting things like that take longer, tomatoes, peppers, even basil if you're doing it inside. If I want basil right away early in the year, I'm going to plant it outside and transplant it. Now, I'm a big believer in redundancy, so I'll transplant that basil out. It's good to do them along with the tomatoes. I'm also going to throw some seeds in there too. Usually I throw like purple basil or something different to get that going. Basil you can clip and keep it going year round, but I like to stagger it as well. Hopefully I try not to just ramble on and on. Hopefully everyone's getting a little bit out of it. Hey, Gidros. Well, thank you very much for popping in. Good to see you. A little bit of my tea. And so that date's going to be really important. In a minute, I'm going to hop over. I'm going to show you some techniques of planting. Hopefully these can all help you out. You find your own last frost date, and you can figure out how long the plants need before that and when to start. These are important. Some things you don't want to do, especially with plants like tomatoes, is plant them too early. So you do need to find a good balance. Planting them too early can be detrimental to the plant too. If they're planted too early, they're going to get a bigger root system. Excuse me. So if you're not stepping up container size properly, which can be difficult with tomatoes, you can get root bound. And if they get root bound, it's a lot more difficult for that plant. It's going to take extra effort. You have to break it apart. It's going to take more work for the plant to rebuild that root structure a little bit and get going. And so it's going to slow down the progress of the plant if they become root bound. Also, if you don't have proper lighting inside, you can get really lanky plants. Some lanky is okay because things like tomatoes in particular, when you plant them, you actually want to plant them horizontally, which sounds weird, and that's for another video. Or you can check out my videos and see. Hey, Al, good to see you, where I show about that. But anyways, if they're a little lanky, it's not a problem with tomatoes because you can plant them horizontally. But some of your others, you don't want them to be. You also don't want them really to go into bloom too early. If they do, you most certainly want to be pulling the flowers, as you're not trying to get the fruit right away. While you're planting inside, you're trying to build a good root structure. You're trying to use things like fans inside. That's important for air circulation. It's also important because it creates resistance on those plants, on the stems. So like this avocado here, pretty frequently I put the fan on it pretty hard, so it's blowing around. And that's important. That's important for people too, but that's important for plants because it's going to create a thicker stalk on it. It's going to give it more resistance. So one of the things here in the high desert we really get, as a lot of places, is we get really high winds, especially right around after that last frost date. So when it's starting to heat up as everywhere, and those temperatures are rising, the ground temperature is rising, the sun's up, and it's temperature change from spring into summer or winter into spring, you get winds. And with those little baby plants, if you have grown them inside and babied them and haven't given them any resistance, when those winds come and you've transplanted, it's going to wipe them out. So in addition to cold hardening, which a lot of people know what that is, that's moving your transplants outside. And we'll talk about that more when that time comes, to harden them that way. One of the things you can do early to help harden your plants inside is using fans. Yep, there you go, Vernon. Okay, I'm going to set this other camera up real quick and switch over. Today, I'm going to be planting one variety. Well, on camera, I'm going to be planting one variety of plants inside, and that is peppers. And we'll talk about that. Bear with me here. I'm setting my camera up over here real quick. All right. Go. Let's see how that works. Okay, we're going to switch over again. Is that one not on? Turn that mic off, so hopefully I don't get the feedback. We'll try to move that up so you don't just see all the mess. And I'm going to try, I don't want to be too long. I know people got Super Bowl parties and plans and things going on today. That is awesome. I'm too ADD for Super Bowl. I wander off and end up outside usually if I'm watching the game. Let's see, can we see my head or am I cut off? I'm not going to be able to see the comments right now. First of all, look at this little button quail egg. Pretty cool, huh? Hey, Willie. Okay, let me get to what I'm going to talk about over here then. Hopefully you guys can see me. So indoor seeds. Now is also a great time to start your indoor plants. Between now and the end of February, majority of our indoor seeds are going to be going in. First things first are going to be the ones that take a really long time. So like peppers, whether it be sweet peppers, hot peppers, they have a really long growing season. Things like loofahs, celery. If you were doing brassicas, we would want to do those certainly by now, if not earlier, or even overwintered in November. We're not going to do those. So one of the things I'm going to do right now is peppers. We love our peppers, and I'm going to start some of those plants. I find for indoor planting, one of the easiest ways we can do it is on these metal racks that wheel around. They're great because I can move it into the window for the sun. I can't really get it outside because of the ledge. I can move all the plants, but I can lower and raise these shelves as the plants grow, lower and raise the lights. You want the lights, especially if you're using LED, very close to those new plant starts. And then I can do a couple other things. Another thing with peppers, because that's what I'm going to be doing now here in particular, is they don't like cold ground or the cold at all. Peppers really like the heat. They thrive in the heat. So most of your plants, all of mine, I use a heat mat to start to get them germinated, unless they're things that like the cold, particularly peppers though. So real kind of cheap, easy to use. I have a heat mat here. Some of them even you can get controls and thermometers that come with them, and you can do it that way. I just try and regulate it and watch it. So I got a heat mat on each of these. I like to start a lot of my plants in these big multi-containers with my seed start. And so I have some more soil here, and I make my own indoor seed mix. I think it works really well. I get rid of gnats. I use boiling water to get rid of gnats. I know some people say it works, some people say it doesn't. It's worked for us for years, so I do that. I can read all day why bumblebees can't fly on the internet and then go outside and hang out with the bumblebees flying around. So it works for us. So I got my sterilized soil in these little multi-containers. Well, they will stay until they germinate, and then generally about 2 weeks above that. We then start moving them up in containers. I really don't want them to get root bound at all, and I don't want them to get stagnant in water. That is some of the biggest things that can kill our plants. So I'll switch to either like a solo cup when they get a little bigger, excuse me, or something like these pots. With tomatoes, we're going to probably switch up a couple sizes as they grow and even bigger ones. So having different pots on hand, gathering these different sizes is going to be a huge benefit for growing indoors. These lights we've gathered over time. I now have, I think, 5 of them, which is awesome. They've taken us a few years to get, but these lights work really good for us. And I can raise and lower them. That one doesn't, but these ones here will allow me to switch the spectrum. So if I want it to flower inside, I can switch it to like a red spectrum to get it to flower. So if I'm doing things like microgreens, which we plan on doing, I can do that indoors. So we're going to start our seed starts here indoors, get these transplanted. They'll start cold hardening and all that by going out to the greenhouse pretty quickly, and then outside. And when that happens, we'll be putting microgreens and all that in here. So let me grab my tray. And everyone knows how to plant plants, so that's not my big talk. That's why I'm jabbering about heat mats and lighting and spacing and how I like to do it. The seed soil that I make has fertilizer that gets them until the next transplant stage. I then start in with a fish emulsion or something like that. When I first started gardening, and this is all part of learning it, and I think doing it, you got to do it to learn it, is I started off with this seed mix that has a little base fertilizer. And someone had mentioned in one of my lives, will you fertilize after? And I told them, no, this seed start mix I use all the way until I transplant has some fertilizer in it, and it's fine. That was a mistake. Fertilizing differently through the different stages of the plant is important. Gardening's not easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of care. Now, you can just go to the store and buy your plants already and plant them at the appropriate time after that last frost date. Nothing wrong with that. That's also part of our redundancy and our backup plan. If you have things available, why not do them? Like peas. I'm going to be growing peas. We're not going to get a ton of them. I'm going to get some to make me happy. Definitely not enough to sell. Probably not even enough to preserve. But that's why we have the grocery store. So now I can take forethought and I can go and freeze and can and ones I buy from elsewhere. That's also community. You may have someone else that can do peas, for example, and grow a lot of them. And you can't, but you can grow a lot of cherry tomatoes, and maybe you can switch and trade. So speaking of, I don't know, Aaron, if you're still in here, but if you're getting short on your alert tea, I'm getting short on silkies. Maybe we could make a deal when you have some eggs available. Anywho, peppers. So some of the peppers we really, really like. Of course, we always do jalapenos. So I'm going to plant some jalapenos, and then daddle. I love the daddle peppers. They're kind of sweet. They're about as hot as a jalapeno. This is one we did a lot with last year and discovered. Actually, let me grab something. Datil. Sorry. So I talked a little bit about powders earlier, and we still have a lot of peppers from last year. So I'm not going to devote a huge amount of space to my garden for peppers because we do have a lot of dry. These are the daddle peppers. And so I have a lot dried. I actually even have powder too from it, and more. So I'm going to plant a few, but not a lot. This is one I do kind of want to try and give to some people or sell. So I'll plant a few in mind for that. A few for us. And then when I plant seeds, I always plant at least twice as many as I plan on having in the ground. Some don't sprout, some won't germinate, some will die along the way, some I'll go to thin and accidentally pull the whole thing out. So at least twice as many. So I'm not just going to fill up this whole container with datil peppers or daddle peppers. That would be ridiculous. This year in the ground, last year I learned it grows in a really nice big bush, and one plant can produce a ton. I always like to have at least two for redundancy. If something happens to one, I have another. So one will be grown in a large pot, and then 1 to 2 will be grown in the ground. So I'm going to shoot for 3, overestimate. I want 3 plants. I also want to be able to either give or sell at least 3 plants. So there's 6. I'm going to go ahead and plant 12. That way I'm sure I have enough. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These big octagon trays happen to have 6 all the way down. So I'm going to do 2 rows in these daddle or datil, however you say it, peppers. Before I do that, because I forget what seed starts I have planted, and this is harder, far harder than identifying, oh, sorry, am I yelling? Far harder than identifying the big plant is identifying the seed start. So I have my little label maker here. Sorry. And I'm just going to type in what I'm not going to type in the name of it because that will get really long on some of these and it won't fit. So I'm just going to put a 1. And I can do this marker, tape, whatever. I just like my little label maker. And these I need to cut because it's a little big. I'll do that off camera. But just to show you what I do is I would take a little number, and you can buy trays that are numbered already that they do this. This one just isn't. And I'll put that real good on the front of the tray. I'll attach it better later, so don't criticize. But just kind of like that. So I know this row is 1, and I'll put it on for the second one as well. So I know which row each one is. And then I just take my notebook, one that's dedicated to my seed starts, and I'm going to put 1. And this is the Zapotec. Is that what it is? Oh no, we're doing the daddle first to get ahead of myself. So daddle peppers. And that's going to be 1. And I'll do that with all of them. It's really easy to get your seed starts mixed up. So that's just a tip, I guess. I ran out of tape. So I'll put that on there. I'll do that off camera. Seeds, if you soak them the night before, are going to have a much better germination rate. They'll germinate quicker. It's better to do it that way. I'm obviously not doing that with these. We tried that with the peas, but there's a tip for you. Verna actually mentioned that in her stream, her Saturday morning the other day. When I plant the seeds, depending on their size and what it is, I want to plant 2 to 3 seeds per little space. And that's, again, most seeds sit around, if you get them from the store, hopefully, and they're not old, like an 85% germination rate is pretty common. So you may have some that don't pop up or don't pop up so well, don't look so good. And so I'll come back after they've popped up and they've gotten so big. Usually I wait until I take the top off and I'll thin them. I'll pull them out. When I first started gardening, I grew a ton of carrots. I planted them everywhere. And my mom asked me, well, did you thin them? And I told her, no, I didn't thin them. I want them to grow. Huge mistake. Carrots are, you're going to say no duh, but carrots are a root vegetable, and the majority of the plant you eat grows underground. So if you don't thin those out, there's nowhere for them to go. They're not a root structure. Thinning is important. All right, so let's say I got my rows labeled. I got my peppers in here. I'm going to put this on the heat mat. And in order to keep moisture, especially in New Mexico, you want to keep them really wet. One of the things that will kill your plants quickest is this soil drying out. So until they get sprouted, I'm going to keep the greenhouse cover on them. I try and do that whether I'm making it the cover on a container that doesn't have one already, or these, that works well. And then the light right above it. I might actually lower this a little bit more. You want to keep the light just a couple inches above those sprouts the whole time. So when this cover is removed, the light will move down. All right, that might be all I wanted to say over here. Let me hop back so I can get comments. I'm always losing my voice. All right, cool. Let's see if I got a little bit of the comments. So I know I'm doing a lot of chatting today, not a lot of actually showing the planting or talking about what plants need to be planted now. And just to recap a little bit, that's on purpose. And that's because today's talk's really just to give some tips on how I do indoor seeds, some of the ones we do outdoors and how I do that. It's really to get you thinking of how you need to do it and give you some things like the frost dates and stuff like that. So Farmer Casey's really excited because we've gotten some button quail eggs so far. I have a video I'm going to release if I can get it edited of him making a little omelets and little fried eggs. So Bob, he's here in New Mexico too. He's saying they had snow, freezing weather as late as Mother's Day. Yeah, it's the end of April here, and he's in Dattle. Green tops on the garlic. That's awesome. So I plant the garlic. Ours gets planted. I'm assuming you kind of did the same. Garlic and onions, broccoli, kale, cauliflower. All these are plants in my climate, at least, that I can plant in November. Or broccoli and cauliflower would really need to be planted the year before almost. And you just kind of let it bolt and then it can overwinter and the next year give you some. But garlic and things like that. I planted in November. They get a little bit big, and I was looking out there thinking, oh man, I don't know if they crowned enough. I don't know how big the garlic harvest is going to be. It might not be well. But yeah, I was out a few days ago, and they're coming up. I'm excited. Cool deal. I know, Willie, you got a lot going on where you're at. So everyone's gardening is different. That's the beauty of it. How you do things is different. Your climate. There's just so many factors there. Oh, and Shadow's saying nice setup. Thank you. Yeah, I really think these metal racks, they're used for all kinds of things throughout the year. I have them that I have. One of them has medical supplies on it, and so it's a roll around kind of prepping medical rack. It rolls so I can get it out of the way. I also like those racks because I can put, like, one of them can have like appliances like dehydrators and smokers and bread maker and things like that on it. One can have medical supplies on it. One can have maybe my long-term storage stuff's kind of back, but maybe like lighting and fire supplies and that type of stuff on it. And I can just push those racks together and then pull them out as I need them. But I also use them for the planting and for all that too. So another cool thing, if you are doing, you can do plants indoors year round. I've actually done tomatoes indoors, cherry tomatoes. It's difficult to do, but you can do it. These wire racks work great for that as well. If that's something you want to do, because you can put some pretty good lights on the top and on the sides even if you want. And you can start the plant on a rack on the bottom and put the other racks on, like a tomato, cherry tomato. Start it on the bottom and you can grow it up through all those racks and do what's called manifolding, where you actually take the suckers, or you can mash and break the branch and create a knuckle, and you can bend those across the wires horizontally and then up, and then do it on the next level. And what you'll end up getting is cherry tomatoes that grow down and hang down along those shelving racks. And then you put lights on. You'll end up needing lights on the sides and possibly back, or using Mylar or something like that. Or you can use like I know Willie was saying, I think a grow tent. I think that was Willie saying that. And so you can do that too. That's basically what I'm building, just on a rolling rack. Or for microgreens. There are so many ways you can grow your food. There's so many. So I think it's, I don't want to say funny. That sounds bad. I think it's sad, I guess, that there's people that get lost or out places, have food all around them, and just don't know what it is or how to harvest or harness that. And people will pass away and stuff just because they don't know, from a lack of knowledge, not even necessarily a lack of food. I mean, you can eat a pine cone and stay alive for a little bit, but you can grow things in so many different ways. There's always, if you have a challenge like the heat here, like I talk about how it goes from the cold to hot just so quickly here that things either bolt or die. That's a problem. And I can get around that. And one of the biggest ways you can do that is like geothermal, or I could dig a pit down into the ground. If you get, I think it's 5 feet below ground, it's going to be 56 degrees all the time, for the most part. And so I can do that, and I can grow that way. There's always ways you can do things. You never say never. I can't grow this. And so peas was one of those. Celery is one of those. Parsley is one of those that part of me just wants to say, oh, we're done with it. We're not going to do it. But if we enjoy it, we're going to find a way. Wapiti. Yeah, potatoes. I've done potatoes inside before. What is wapiti? Instead of trying to pull weaker ones out, you can snip it. Yeah, I learned that last year. Because I'd pulled some of them, like I said, I'd pull them out and the whole thing would come out. So Verna's saying to snip them instead. That is important. Yep. And we're actually just over an hour here. So I'm just going to finish up today's talk with some fellowship like we're doing now, and some questions and all for, I don't know, 15 minutes, and then I'm going to hop off. Let everyone get to their Super Bowl Sunday. 17 people in here. All right, I'm going to have to look up what this is then, Bob. Rocky Mountain elk? Oh, it's an elk? Hey, Renegade, good to see you. Renegade was here, and now she's not. I hope you're doing good. So that's a good example. Renegade, you've gardened here in this climate that I'm in before, and then she moved and had to learn a whole nother climate and a whole nother microclimates and grow zones and all that. And so doing it, you got to get out and do it. And I think I saw from some of her posts, you could correct me if I'm wrong there, Renegade, but that you're getting some stuff going this year here. Remember to comment on videos after it ends. Yeah, so Willie's saying that as a content creator, this really helps. A lot of people don't think, and I didn't think about this till I started content creating. Thumbs up helps. Interaction, comments in the chat helps. If you go back after and comment on it and just say like, hey, great live, or hey, I liked being there, or hey, your hair looked whack, whatever you want to put in there, those comments help out. And what that helps is it helps the YouTube algorithm to get it out to more people. One of my goals, my goal has not really been to be monetized till now. It was just getting info out, and that's still my goal. That's the main goal. However, I'm putting a lot of work into it, a lot of hours. It weighs on the family a little bit. And so this year, one of my goals is to get monetized. We're kind of close. I don't think that's such a bad thing. But until then, a good way, or even then, a good way you can help out is comments and all that. Oh wow, I was way off. It said That's what it's called, a semi-underground greenhouse, a wapiti. All right. That's what I was talking about. Wallapini. You had some elks coming by there, Bob. That's cool. Man, they're big. Until I saw them in person, you just don't realize how big they are until you see them. Holy cow. They're big animals. And they were coming right up to your property, huh? So, Bob, I know you don't you're still doing quail, I'm assuming, and I know you don't incubate and all during winter. Are you going to be starting up quail again here, or just curious? Life in Missouri is good. You got some raised beds. So I saw that post with the removable greenhouse tops. Man, I'm going to try and build those this year. Adding to the food forest around you. Is it so I'm assuming you're in a much better climate now for things to grow. There's a lot more green out there. So how's that experience for you, Renegade? I'm assuming it's just really cool to be able to grow more and see more and all. That's kind of a big question, huh? Elk cows, 500 to 700 pounds. Bulls, 700 to 900 pounds. Yeah, that's a big animal. That is a real big animal. So Willie's saying he lives in a semi-underground greenhouse. You live under a dome. Yeah. You know, we've seen earth houses, and I know people probably seen the greenhouse over the house. I just thought, what a great idea. I don't know why I guess you kind of do. People do sunrooms and atriums and things like that. But to build your house in a greenhouse, I mean, there's a lot of cost and stuff, but that's a cool idea. Out here in New Mexico, we have a lot of earth ships. I don't know if y'all know what those are, but they're earth homes. They're built to be in tune with the environment. I don't know if they're usually like whole ecosystem little houses that are built. They're a cool thing. You'd have to look into it, but they're just out here near us. Does Bob ever harvest the elk? Oh, so Bob's saying yes, quails will incubate another batch this month. So he's getting going with that. Very cool. So Bob, I know I had promised you with these button quail, I'm going to find a profitable reason to have them, and I will. And exactly like you thought, some of the biggest things I've come up with in my head is they are for the mental health. For me, same as the silkies, kind of. Although they do give us benefits. We got some eggs. Casey eats the eggs. It gave him a whole breakfast. They don't eat a lot. The button quail really don't. I don't feed that water or feeder very often. So as far as cost, it's really low. Really, really low. And to be honest, I could probably take the powder, the crumble that comes off the other quail feed that I am trying to find things to do with. I could probably feed that to them, and that would be fine. So as far as cost, I've discovered there's really none. I mean, I build their cage and stuff, but upkeep isn't really hardly anything either. So they're feeding Casey some. That's a update, I guess. Haven't made a profit, and I'm trying to stay away from the crafting thing. But as far as keeping them, they're not going to provide a lot of meat if you're eating them that way. They hardly any cost or room to keep them at all. And you really, so you get eggs. I mean, for less than I'm feeding the bigger quail. We all do, LOL, saying we trapped in a dome. Yeah. No elk yet from your property, but you do it, yeah. So have a ranch close by and a buddy that had a tag last year. So I saw that. I got excited. So one thing, although my father has always taught gardening and loves that stuff, and my mom too, and I was really raised a city boy, very much so. No one in the family I know of hunts or anything. So that's something I haven't done that I still want to get out and do. Is figure that out sometime. I can. That is right. I can make them into earrings. You have water, rain, and forest. Oh, you got us beat. Lots of wild plants, berries, grapes, ooh, mushrooms and herbs along with wildlife's a big difference, huh? I I take it that you made a good decision, that you're happy with your decision. That's really cool, Renegade. One of the places, a lot of our plants come from Missouri. I buy seeds from people there. Um, and I follow a lot of people out in that area. It's definitely near the country I've looked at that I don't know how on board my wife is about moving far away and all that, but I would like to go too. So that's cool. Was Bob sharing the elk? Is that what we're sharing? Is that what I heard? You haven't seen the earrings, Tracy. Oh man. So Kelly at Feathered Connections, I had bought earrings from her. I don't think they're in here. I'm gonna have to make some earrings. They're really cool. I'll have to send you some there, Tracy. Quail egg earrings are awesome, and these so the Corturnix quail egg earrings are cool. Quail eggs themselves are small, but I think these button quail would even be almost cooler for the earrings because they're smaller, especially on a smaller person. Not me. I'm holding them up to me. They'd be for my wife. But you know, on a ear. Get Casey a fly tying vise kit. He has said he wants to do that. And use extra males. I call their feathers. I've heard that. Yeah, for tight. So I had a guy in here. I think it was actually your buddy that does a lot of fishing there, Willie. Was talking about that. And that could be profitable. And you know, I bet you the button quail feathers, because they're smaller too, it might even work better for those ties. They're so light. They're cool. I think my wife has them. Let me see. I thought maybe they were in here still, but she must have them. They're really neat. I'll get you a pair. I got to write this down. I forget everything. I say this on my streams a lot, and I'm going to say it again. I have a horrible memory, and compounded with being all ADD and all, it is bad. That's also bad for business. It's one of my challenges. So if I forget something on here ever, I've told you something, and you're like, gee, Matt's just not doing whatever. I don't know what it would be, but please email me, grafterbranchhomestead@gmail.com, or throw a comment down and just remind me, hey, Matt, you said you were going to do this, or make a video on this, or whatever it is that you want to see that I said I was going to do. I don't try, and I always try and stick to my word. It's very important. I have a horrible memory, though, so my word may, you have to remind me constantly. I got a note. It says, Tracy, earrings. Great to make people laugh. Yeah, did I give you the candles? I don't remember. I think I did. I did give you the candles, didn't I? Okay, for hat bands. Put in my hat. That's my problem too, Steve. Even that's why I say you got to remind me, even with the note. I make the notes and then I lose the notes and then I end up with a pile of notes. Then I find the note 6 months later and I think, oh, what a great note. I still got to do this. And I set it there and then I lose it again. 'Tis the story. Also, I've decided I'm kind of done apologizing for missing videos or things like my herbal corner. Life's busy. Life's crazy. I guess I can say in particular, February, I dropped the ball on the grafted herbal corner. And that was for 2 reasons. They're good reasons. One was just time. 3 reasons. One was time. I never have that. 2 was, I don't know, if a little under the weather maybe, but I've just been more tired lately. And so I've been going to bed a little earlier, which is good. But I haven't gotten that midnight videos done. And the third thing is, a problem I'm running into. I really need with the herbal corner to get a month ahead of it because some of the things require a couple weeks to sit, and some of the things require some expense. So in particular, February was supposed to be kind of cosmetic or like deodorant, toothpaste, stuff like that. We were going to do some facial scrubs and lotions and stuff. The ones we want to do require some oils that I can make, but I didn't have, such as like rosehip oil and frankincense oil. And those can be very expensive. And what I consider very, very expensive is $15 for a small bottle is very, very expensive. So I have to buy those slowly. And so I didn't have all the oils I needed, and I was kind of stressed about that and getting that. And so I stepped back part of it too. And I said, look, Matt, you're not feeling great. You don't have all the items you need or the time, like the 3 weeks or whatever, to get all these projects I planned in February done. I could stress out and I could, do that, which I do a lot. Or I can just step back and I can try and get ahead for March, and is what I need to do. And I just started this thing, so it's already stepping back's kind of not ideal, but I got to do what I got to do. These are some problems I didn't anticipate a little bit. A little bit more planning would have got me on board with that. But anyways, we'll be back in March for Metabolic March with that. Life. Keep a notepad near when you are live. Ooh, it's already 11:17. Holy cow. Okay, I got to work today, so I do got to start wrapping up. But keep a notepad near you when you are live. Write down thoughts. I've been trying to do that. This is Amish country as well. Working with friends for getting homegrown meat this year. That is awesome. They were, okay, yeah. I remembered I bought those, and I forget what I give people too. Sorry. But yeah, I'm glad you like them. They are awesome. Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Store was a wonderful time. Yeah, I like them. We get a lot from Baker Creek. Really do. I love their magazine too. Willie's laughing at something. At me. Oh no, Willie, your truck died. That's sad. I'm sorry about that. That's a pain. 100,000 acre ranch. Is that the one Turner owned? I know there's one right out. No, that one's south. Mostly open grassland and desert. Long shots, too many poachers. Oh, okay. So the elk are scared to be around there. That's sad. Well, that's true. That makes the success more precious. Very good. And I am caught up on comments. So I really want to stay on and just fellowship today. This is awesome. I love it. And I could talk seeds and this type of stuff all day long. I have to go work for the man. So there may be a Herbal Corner video up Wednesday. There may not. For sure there will be in March because I'm getting ahead on that. Other than that, we're going to be alive next Sunday. We have something kind of planned there. And then that following Sunday is when we're going to be doing Toast to Toast again. And we'll be doing the green chili quail, sourdough biscuit pot pie thing. I forget the name of it. But we'll be cooking that up. Not the Turner Ranch. Okay. Yeah, that one's down by Alamogordo, I think. So anyways, so we have a couple of different cooking things. We'll be in the kitchen a little bit. Not next Friday, but the one after that. I think that's the last one of the month. I'll be doing a fireside chat, and we'll be outside and hopefully have a few things like that. So you guys go out there, do the things, go at life mindfully. Don't just drift through it. Stay strong, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate y'all. And you are welcome, Steve. Thank you for listening to my gardening tips. Hopefully y'all got something out of it at least. Other than that, I enjoy it. So you guys have a good one. Bye.